Jax. I am a fantasy writer and also your host for tonight. If this is your first time watching, it's pretty simple. Night Writes is a writing hangout in which we chill out and have fun and generally chat. There is an open chat room. If you click the link that's, if you're on Blue Sky currently looking in the player view, click the little link and that'll take you straight to our chat room. You can say whatever you like in there so long as it's cool with everybody else, as in you're not a weirdo or creep or flaming somebody or something like that. And so long as it doesn't violate YouTube's TOS, because I do like my account. I will read off the things that get entered into the chat and respond to them, and that is how we communicate here. That is most of the fun here. The other part of the fun is word sprints, which start at 9 p.m. Which is about a half an hour from now. We like to use the first half an hour of our show to let people trickle in and say hi, get situated, get comfy. There is an icebreaker, by the way, before I get into the streams bit. The icebreaker is just a little writing question to help you get into the swing of things and get comfy talking to each other. Tonight's is kind of last minute thrown together, and it is, does your work in progress have any Halloween-esque holidays? Doesn't have to be in October, doesn't have to be a Halloween, but it could be at the end of your October, whatever you like. Or alternatively, if your work in progress is set in our world, what do your characters do for Halloween? Just have a little bit of fun with it, especially while I explain the rest of the stream to you. The rest of the stream is also likewise pretty simple. We sit there and we do whatever we want for about 20 minutes. It is a word sprint in name only. Traditionally, word sprints are you write for a certain period of time. At the end of the period of time, you stop, take a break, share your progress, cheer each other on, and then you launch into the next sprint whenever you feel like it, if there's another sprint. For us, it's 20 minutes, and then break, 20 minutes, break, 20 minutes. So it's 3 sprints throughout the night. Now, when I say that it's in name only, that means that you can literally do whatever you want so long as it is some kind of progress on whatever you're trying to do. I've had people play video games during these streams. I've had people relaxing. I've had people doing laundry. So long as you have a goal and you're working towards it, we will still support you. You can even just chill out for the entire time. Doesn't really matter. So that having been said, that is everything that you need to know. It is a very simple stream, as I've said. Nothing wild here, no video games, nothing, unfortunately, no Halloween-y streams. I am kind of definitely not stealing a lo-fi hip-hop stream. I'm not even sure if there's actually going to be too many people because it is a holiday night, but it happened to be the only night that I had available. And even now, it's sort of like, I just had a friend, kind of like, maybe I'll come in, or maybe we'll do breakfast instead. It's been a crazy week. Hello, welcome, Companion Wolf. Companion Wolf says, hi, Jack's friend, and I say hi back. But yes, welcome. You have thankfully missed the entire spiel, so you already know the drill, so I don't have to reiterate with you. But anyway, yes, it has been a crazy week. I know that I should have streamed Tuesday and I did promise a stream of the Final Fantasy Eternal Bonding. My friend and I, it doesn't actually mean anything. We in it. Final Fantasy, but basically Final Fantasy has a marriage option where you can marry your character to somebody else's, and it's supposed to be, you know, romantic and also a roleplay thing. It's supposed to be very cute. We did it for quote-unquote tax benefits, which means that there are perks if you get married in Final Fantasy. You get a ring that allows you to teleport to your spouse every 15 minutes, like directly to them. And you also get a cool chocobo mount and some outfits that you can use for because as anybody who's played Final Fantasy knows, the true end game is not actually battles, it's dressing your character up, so you get outfits for that. We have been joking for a while because she's actually married, and she's married in real life, and her husband uh, uh, had met her after he started playing and after he got him married to a friend of his. So divorce is a possibility, but in this game, but for some reason he never got divorced from the other person's character, so it's sort of like, cool, I'm going to go and steal your wife. But anyway, we actually got married on Monday, and it was the memeiest ceremony possible. We invited as many of our free company friends to this wedding, and even then it was like kind of a smallish wedding. And we were cracking jokes the entire time. We picked the most ridiculous options you possibly could. Our free company leader slash my wife's actual husband cursed us out for using the memeiest song possible in the reception. It was great. But yeah, my character, who I like to believe is a disaster lesbian. Like, there's a backstory to this character. I've never actually used it because I don't actually roleplay with this character. But, well, I don't go on the roleplay servers. What I do instead is, like, I like to make little fanfiction in my head as I'm playing the game. So I play a female Mikote, and this Mikote is a seeker of the sun. And if you know, most people don't really know this much lore because I'm a massive lore nerd whenever I play any kind of game. So basically, to give you a crash course, there are two tribes among the Mikote. There are the Keepers of the Moon and the Seekers of the Sun. The Keepers of the Moon are matriarchal. They live in giant groups of females, and the males kind of wander all over the place. But, it's all about the ladies. But with the Seekers of the Sun, it's very patriarchal. You have one male called the Nun, and every female around him is basically a candidate for becoming his harem. It's kind of problematic, I know. If there are any other males, they're called Tias. So you might have characters like Graha Tia. That means that he's never actually been a leader of his tribe. But Tias can become Nuns if they challenge the current Nun and defeat him in battle. Well, my character, Rizara Zan, she was born to one of these Seeker of the Sun tribes, and as a child, she had always been told about the Nun. Your father was not a Nun. He was kind of a loser Tia. That's why, you don't really see him that often. But, if you grow up and you become strong, you might be adopted or you might be taken into the harem of the Nun and whatnot. And she's like, oh, cool. But wait, there are these people who are challenging the Nun. Well, what's that all about? And, she'd be told the tradition, and she'd be like, cool, I want to challenge the Nun then. And I want to have all the power to make decisions, because that's also what the Nun does. He's the tribal leader. I know it's, again, problematic, but this is Final Fantasy lore. So he's like the one person in every single Seeker of the Sun group that makes all the decisions. He's political leader, but he's also like the breeding male. But Rizara didn't understand that he's the breeding male part. She only saw, oh, he's the mightiest warrior in the group, and he's also the guy who makes all the decisions. He's clearly the coolest person here, so therefore I need to defeat him in order to become a Nun and be awesome. So when she became of age, she challenged the Nun, got her ass kicked, and this happened every so often. Like every couple of years, she would try again and challenge the Nun. Eventually, he's like, Rizara, I feel bad for you. I can't even accept you right now. Why don't you go out and train. Just do something with yourself other than trying to defeat me, because you will never actually be a nun. He never bothered to explain to her because she's female. So she went off and she was like, cool, I'm going to fuck you. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to be the best damn warrior ever. So she goes out and she, through a series of events, she becomes the Warrior of Light, which is the chosen one, essentially, in Eorzea. Then all the events of Final Fantasy happens. I'm not even going to go through it. And she becomes this incredible black mage. She becomes this incredible summoner, like a master of the magical arts. And she goes back. She even defeats like these cosmic horrors, gods, everything that you can imagine. She goes back to the nun and she gets her ass kicked again. And I like to think that after every single expansion, she goes back home and she's like, I did this. I am going to challenge you. I am therefore strong enough to challenge you. And then she gets her ass kicked again by just this nobody nun in the middle of La Noscea. But eventually she does finally get told, hey, somebody like finally takes her aside and they're like, you can't be the nun because the nun is the breeding male. And she'd be like, oh, well, it's a good thing I'm gay. And then it becomes like her ultimate goal is to become a nun, not just to be super awesome and like the strongest person and also like the person who makes the decisions, but also this super awesome lesbian who's surrounded by all these sword lesbians. So, long story short, Rizara finally got gay married, and now she's like, this is my wife. She is a Dark Knight, and she is the strongest Dark Knight I know. She's awesome. I have finally found my partner, the first person in my own tribe. In other words, she is a disaster, and I love her. I'm so proud that she finally got married, and poor Callisto. Companionable says, I like that backstory a lot. That's really fun. It really is. It's so unnecessary. I never actually use it. And on top of that, like, if you look at every other Warrior of Light's backstory, it's like traditional, what you would expect from a JRPG. Everybody else takes it seriously. So, I always kind of like read these tragic backstories of like people who are orphaned and wandering warriors and whatnot, and then there's mine who's like, just, like, Rizara is perfectly well adjusted, except for the fact that she's a dumbass who wants to fight her own nun to become a nun, because it took her ages to realize what a nun actually means. So, yeah. So that was the Eternal Bonding Ceremony. I know that I said a lot about my character, but to be honest, Callisto doesn't really, as far as I know, didn't really build too much for hers. Not everybody does what I do. So, there's that. But it was very memey. It was very great. We had a lot of fun. I do have the video somewhere, but it's sort of like, it's more commentary from my free company, which is the guild, what we call guilds in Final Fantasy. So I only shared it with them, but to give you a taste, the first 5 seconds consist of a black screen, and Callisto says, do you act a fool at everybody's wedding or just mine? And her husband, Aiden, goes, yes, just immediately. And then it fades in, and it's like, that's a perfect encapsulation of the entire shenanigans that we went through. So it was awesome. The rest of the week, it's just sort of like, I've just been busy, kind of like, Tuesday was the honeymoon, quote unquote. We did Pilgrim's Traverse. Wednesday, I don't even remember what we did Wednesday. More shenanigans. Then Thursday, I forgot it was D&D night, and now we're here. But yeah, I have to admit that I haven't been making too much progress on TNS in the same time. I'm still on chapter 10, and I'm hoping that through the work that goes on tonight, I'll be able to push through to the 11th chapter, because I'd like to start off with a clean slate tomorrow. Which incidentally is NaNoWriMo. Happy NaNoWriMo Eve to all of those who celebrate. If you hear any strange noises, it's because even tonight it was like super busy. Like I said, a friend of mine had been considering coming up, and then around 8 o'clock, 8:15, whatnot, he finally was like, I'm not gonna leave Brooklyn. I'm like, cool. But in any case, a lot of this afternoon, immediately after the work, it was spent basically cleaning and cooking and preparing for a potential night out immediately after stream, and then stuff never happened. So in other words, I am very much looking forward to just kind of like collapsing on a bed afterwards. But it's like I can't, because I also have the newsletter to do. So all kinds of shenanigans. But in any case, I have talked a lot, and I will be right back at my desk in just a quick second. But how have the rest of you been? What's new out there? Also, feel free to answer the icebreaker question. I will in just a second, I swear. Tea has finally been made, by the way. Companion Wolf says, Happy Nano Eve, LOL. And same to you. I'm finally at my desk and I can finally settle down. It is 10 minutes until our first sprint, and we'll see how it goes. But, oh boy, let me just catch my breath a second. Okay, here we go. To answer my own icebreaker question, though, there is kind of sort of, there are Halloween-ish traditions, as in traditions in which you dress up and go around your community and like get candy or tell spooky stories at night. And ironically, it is for most of the Luminites. For most of the Luminites, which are basically all the fantasy races, it is actually in October. It's specifically the first week of October, or their October, essentially. It's called the Feast of Alphen. The Feast of Alphen is actually more accurately more like Purim, in the sense that it has this atmosphere of being very jovial and very happy, because it is essentially an arts festival. So it is a feast dedicated to the god of arts and of flowers. And just a sec. Sorry about that, sinuses went wonky. But it is essentially a festival dedicated to the god of flowers and wood magic and arts and performance and music. So it is a time in which a lot of art shows happen. There are free performances, but for the average layman, you know, there are festivals. This is a time whenever you entertain and show off your skills as a musician or as a storyteller. So you might share stories, or you might perform little musical numbers and whatnot. But the children also dress up in little costumes and go around, and they get sweets from adults in their community. It's very much like trick-or-treating, but It's very joyous. It's not so much spooky, it's joyous. Uh, the Zizoon also have a harvest festival around this time because they are celebrating the end of the harvest. So there's a lot of sweets in there as well, and there's a lot of going around and trading sweets with each other, but it's more like for them it's just a feast day. They don't exactly have a holiday for costumes and for dressing up. Not one of their own. Usually there is like a Zizoon diaspora, essentially. So when they go to countries like Eldana that happens to have one, they're like, oh, we're intrigued. We kind of do want to fit in. So we're going to adopt this holiday. We don't fully understand it, but yeah, we would like to wear our little bee-sized costumes and trade or get free candy, and we will give you candy. Do you like our honey candy? We will give you honey candy. And it is very cute and very much joyous for them as well. Even though most other Luvinites are like, I'm not sure they fully understand what they're doing. The dragons, meanwhile, have no holidays whatsoever, so that is what it is. But there we go. Companion Wolf was actually telling us about their week. They say, I don't even remember what I did this week. Oops. I played in a one-shot of a TTRPG called Eclipse Phase, though, if I remember right. Well, that's also fun. That also sounds very Halloween-y. We do have a few minutes if you'd like to tell us a little bit about Eclipse Phase. My mouse is going sideways, so feel free to take on a little bit of talking. Companion Wolf says, Eclipse Phase is a sci-fi transhumanist game. Typically you play against agents of Firewall who are tasked with keeping what remains of humanity safe from various threats. Well, that's fun. It sounds very Matrix. I like that. Companion Wolf says the one shot I played in, all of our characters were copies of the same person, and we had to go find the original and stop her from doing eco-terrorism. We failed and thousands of people died. And now our characters are on the run under new identities, lol. Actually, I do love it when a plan goes very sideways and you don't save the world, because now it's... that, you know, that takes a little bit of thought. And also, on top of that, like, it's so different from what you would normally find in any kind of, like, fantasy story or even just any story in general, because you'd expect the good guys to win, but you never really ask yourselves, what happens if they fail and they fail hard? So, I love that. I love that for you guys. I hope that... I know that's a one-shot, but I hope the epilogue for that was very satisfying to put together. Anyway, it is 8:59, so if we're working on something, feel free to drop in the chat what it is. Otherwise, take a moment to get ready, because we will jump into our first stream in just a moment. Alright, 9 p.m. on the dot. So, Companion Wolf says, I'm coloring, I think, or finding dinner, either or. Good luck either way. So, that having been said, 9 p.m. on the dot. Let's take a deep breath. Let it out slowly. One more time, just to get into the right headspace. And back out. Hopefully you have a liquid at your side, and hopefully you are very well rested, because 20 minutes are on the clock, and I will see you on the other side. Best of luck. Get ready, get set, and here we go. just in case I'm not back by the time the bell hits. that is our first break. Also, yes, I did manage to come back beforehand. So how did we do? For me, that is just 220 words, although you could see me just like flipping back and forth through words. And I did take that little break. It's, I have to admit that I'm not feeling super 100% at the peak of my game. So there's also that. It's one of those nights where it's sort of like you eat something and then everything starts to revolt on you, and it's like you haven't eaten anything that's out of the ordinary, and yet it still happens. So it's one of those nights. I'll be fine. It's just like some nights my digestive system likes to agree with me, other nights it does not. And I know that's too much information, and I do apologize for that. But we will power through the next 2 sprints, and we'll see where we are afterwards. And at the same time, I'm probably going to pick away at the newsletter. I know that normally I like to finish my sentences, but there are 2 bits that I need to go back to. Fuck it, I'm just going to continue onwards. Companionable says, I got dinner, smiley face. Excellent. What did you have for dinner? I say after I go off about how I'm not feeling up for it, you know, all that well, but, you know, have at it. Chili. Excellent. What kind of chili? Because it is chili season. And I think this year I'm going to try to make vegetarian chili, either bean chili or impossible meat chili, or both. Because there's no such thing as too much chili when it's autumn. And that is a quote that you can just go ahead and take. Yeah, no, I think it was the peas that I had. Peas are such a lovely thing, but do not have too much of them, my friends. Turkey, I think. Also excellent. Like, it's lean, but it's still good. Turkey makes good chili. I will say that. Then again, like, again, I shouldn't be eating meat. I know I say this every few seconds, but yes, there's that. But, like, I do miss meat in a way. Like, there are some things that you just cannot replace with plant-based products. And you know, there's nothing, I've tried, but there's nothing that replaces a good, for example, chicken adobo. There's nothing that replaces a good pastrami, and and the top tier kinds of chili involve either beef or turkey, in my opinion. But I am going to experiment, and we shall see. I do have to say that impossible meat is very tasty, though. It's not quite exactly like beef, but in many applications it is a lot better than beef, in my opinion. Like, it makes amazing pasta sauce. And I've not yet actually made burgers out of it myself, but you know, I eat impossible meat burgers whenever I'm out and about, and 9 times out of and honestly, I like it better than actually getting meat. So in that case, like, when it comes to like chicken sandwiches or burgers, like, the plant-based products out there are so good and actually a lot better than meat. But then you'll have also like lunch meat, which is just sad on a plate. And bean burgers, I have to be in the right mood for bean burgers, because otherwise it's sort of like you'll be eating and you'll have like this whole ass lima bean, and I've never been a lima bean person to begin with, and it's sort of like this takes away my experience no matter how much sauce is in it. And it's like or just like a whole bean instead of the meat that you're expecting. I know that's weird to be like, well, like the entire point of becoming a vegetarian or a vegan is to get away from meat-based products, right? So you're not supposed to be eating things that remind you of meat. And that is why you have, like, it's sort of like the bean burger is that healthy line between meat, or like your meat-eating past and your plant-based present. So it's sort of like, okay, that's the one step where you're allowed to have quote-unquote meat. But like, I don't know, it's just been my first half year. It's not even been a half year. You can forgive me if I'm like, I miss meat. Anyway, so yeah, that's my story. I will experiment and see. And honestly, you can take the meat quote-unquote plant-based products out of my cold fucking dead hands, because they're so good and so tasty, and they make me miss meat less. And some of them don't actually, like, they taste like meat only in actual taste, not in texture. So like, you know that you're not eating meat, but at the same time is you do get like that smoky umami flavor that only meat can have. So it's like you're eating something that's different, but your taste buds are at least satisfied. That's how I feel about like these a lot of this quote-unquote meat. Like my absolute favorite thing are these Korean barbecue steak strips, and they're actually made of soy product. So they taste so the texture is actually very spongy. Not at all like meat, even remotely. But they also have the taste of something that's very smoky, kind of like you just grilled up some meat and chopped it up into strips, and it's so good. But you know that you're not eating meat. So that's my story anyway. Anyway, I'm just kind of like chilling at the moment. We could start in on the next sprint, but I also kind of want to finish these thoughts that I've been trying to hammer away. I've at least done the low bridge, so now I just need to finish this sentence, and honestly I can finish it. Fuck it, I'm gonna mark this off. Now, the troubling thing about this little bit right here is, okay, you can't see my screen all that well. Let me actually see what you can see. Okay, yeah, it's just slightly cut off, so I might try to bump this up and see if you can actually eventually get it. But, I'm running into a problem with this chapter, and if it would stop giving me menus at the bottom of the screen, I can show you. So as you can see, that's a problem right there. That is a chunky boy chapter. And now, keep in mind, I can trim. In fact, you can see that I've already started taking notes, like, hey, move this here and this there. So I'm actually really excited about this, because when everything is said and done, I'm resisting every temptation to go back and trim. But Chapter 1 is unfortunately going to be staying the same. It's actually probably going to get longer because you can see this note up here. I did not actually include the ballad of Josiah and Martin, which forms the cornerstone of the entire plot. Like, I will get to that in a second, but it is extremely important that I actually finish that bit. So unfortunately, this fucking behemoth, it already stands at 8,301 words. It's going to get longer. I would project it to be certainly not 9,000, and probably I will trim a little bit, but it's definitely going to clock in, I would say, 85 at the very most. But this is going to actually, it's going to get Frankensteined. So there's about a midway point around the 3,000 mark where Mick and Eleanor transition into a town, and then shenanigans happen. But what's going to happen is I am getting rid of this chapter, kind of, sort of, and no, actually, this chapter is going to go completely because everything that's in here is going to get blended in, shortened essentially, and blended into the end of Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is getting chopped halfway, and part of it is moving into Chapter 3. So I've already got plans to, like, this is 751 words. It's probably going to end up being, I would say, 4,000 words maximum. This one's going to continue being this 3,000 words, and it's going to be great. We're going to be on track, and that's like an extra 3,000 words chopped off right there. And I'll be going through and finding places to trim up. There are a lot of unnecessary conversations, a lot of unnecessary movements, but once we get down here, unfortunately, everything that happens in this chapter is going to be vital. It might be divided into two eventually, but because, like, half of it is about Mick learning how to use his powers, the other half is about Mick learning what the dragon's plight actually is and deciding, you know, I do want to stay as a dragon for a little bit longer, and I do want to be their conductor, but I have to figure out how to go about doing that without getting murdered by Miriam. Actually, now that I think about it, I could just chop it off at the end here and then continue it on with Chapter 11, where he meets the dragons and finally makes the decision. It is true that most of the chapters, I'm basically rubber-ducking at you, and I do apologize, but Act 2, aka the part where he gets to Sanctuary, starts in Chapter 8. And Act 2 is all about how Mick decides to become the conductor, and he eventually comes up with all these plans to prepare for a mass evacuation into Sanctuary. So, like, he's like, if, so long as I exist, if there's no other way that we can resolve this, or actually, so long as I exist, the gods will be after you. So therefore, I want to be able to prepare Sanctuary for accepting dragons into the city so that all of you can be safe and I can protect you from here. That way, I'm not actually leading you to war, and I'm not technically leading you. You will still be led by Miriam. It's just that we can keep you all in one place, and and everything will be fine. We will build up a society here. We have everything that we need here, but we can buy ourselves time until we figure my thing out, and once we figure my thing out, then you can go your separate ways. But for now, the most important thing is that we make sure that everybody's safe. So, actually, yeah, that's... I think I've just figured several things out all at once, so that's fun. So the rest of the act is essentially Mick working with the dragons to prepare this, despite Miriam's constant objections saying, hey, like, this isn't going to work. I've seen enough conductors to know that this isn't going to work. Other conductors have done this before. You don't start thinking that you're special in doing this. So there will probably be a little bit of tension there, but I also don't want to go too deep into it because I don't want to draw this out too long. Plus, she doesn't want to have anything to do with Nick, so she will actually be avoiding him, but sort of like at the same time, she'll be watching him to make sure that he doesn't do anything past like, hey, do whatever you want to benefit the city, but the second that I see you doing anything other than, say, reinforcing our farmland and whatnot, that's when I'm going to step in and be like, hey, stop this. You're not the conductor. We don't want you as the conductor. Stop it. So her role is probably going to be strangely minimum. I will have to do a little bit of explaining and a little bit of showing that there is tension between these two. But it'll culminate in Mick receiving a distress signal from Saint Nadia, because the Saint Nadia dragons, or a group of dragons, had reached Saint Nadia, which to them is a sanctuary on the outside, because Zizun will help anyone, and it's a remote enough place that they're not bothered all that often. But the dragons stumble there, and they send off a distress signal through their dragon network, saying, hey, there are dragons over here. They were recently attacked by the Queen's Guard, but they've escaped. They're in St. Nadia. We need to send dragons into St. Nadia to go retrieve them so that they may return. The dragon network, at least, has its own, it's its own thing. They have space dragons as well, but there's no space dragon among this group. They just happen to be separated from the rest of the attack, I guess. I'll figure that part out later. But anyway, that's where the plan comes in, where Mick decides to drop plans in order to extract these dragons from St. Nadia. And when things start to go south, there's an ambush from the Order. Mick himself goes in and fights off the, I say the Order, but it's the Queen's Guard. Order was their past name. He fights them off long enough to allow for a full evacuation of the town, not just of the dragons, but also the Zizun, because the Zizun's village is now wrecked, and the Zizun themselves have been flagged as traitors to the gods. So that's how the Zizun come into Sanctuary, but I imagine that entire build-up will take some time. Right now, Chapter 10 might end in a few more lines, because I don't want to have anything that's huge and chunky. Chapter 11 will be Mick meeting the dragons and really meditating. He starts talking to them. He gets to tour a little bit of the sea. We get to see a little bit more of Sanctuary. We get to learn about dragon culture. And at the end of it, he'll be like, I want to help you. So there will be a time skip after that in Chapter 12. But Chapter 12 is when he'll finally get the distress signal, maybe. Or, again, there needs to be something that happens between him and Miriam. Maybe there will be like little bits here and there in the flashback time skip. But I'll figure it out. It's either going to be Chapter 12 where he gets the distress signal, or Chapter 13. So that's when we get into the November content, when I start nano-randoing everything. So yeah, that is the Act 2 and 3 in a nutshell, and I'm so delighted to throw words at you. Companion Wolf says, I'm trying to find a solo TTRPG to do tonight. I do wish you luck with that. If you do find one, feel free to recommend it too, because I'm kind of curious about the whole solo TTRPG thing. You talk about it a lot, and it does sound like a lot of fun. Companion Wolf says, happy to be rubber ducked at. I am also delighted. Thank you so much for sitting through all of that. It was a lot, I know, but I did figure things out. So there's that. Like, I was uncertain about how to, like, wrap up, or sort of like, how do you process the logic behind why Mick wants to actually help the dragons. And that's going to be a huge part of the conversation that he's going to have. Apparently in chapter 11 now, but you know. Anyway. I'm also making plans. So at 9:45 we'll start in on the next sprint. How's that? Alright, it is 9:45. That means let's dive in to our next sprint. Companion Wolf says trying to find something appropriately spooky. Again, wishing you the best of luck. There are plenty of... I'm sure that there are plenty of them. It is TTRPG, so like shenanigans and whatnot. But anyway, 9:45. 20 minutes are on the clock. Get ready, get set, and here we go. Alright, that is that is sprint number 2, I'm sorry. How did we do? For me, that is 403 words. Not bad. As you can see, I started a new chapter, so we are moving right along. And it was a nice little dive into... It was a good idea to break this into 2 chapters. It just works better. It doesn't feel as chunky. I can get directly into the world building of Sanctuary, and I give myself a little bit of breathing room and a little bit of time and space, with which to play with the dragons. So there's going to be a little bit of setup in sprint number 3, and then we'll launch into what this crystal is and why it's so important. So I'm excited about that. We are moving along, in other words. There's progress being made. I have gotten unstuck, and this is a good place to start off the first of NaNoWriMo. It's actually going to be quite funny because the first of NaNoWriMo, and I know for a fact that I am going to not do... So you know how in NaNoWriMo, in order to really... There are several ways that you can tackle the challenge, and I know this because I've done the challenge multiple times and won the challenge multiple times. So technically, you do not actually have to write every single day. You just have to have days in which you write more than others if you're going to do that. If you do it every single day, you have to write a minimum of 1,667 words. This will get you just over the line for 50,000 words. I know that sounds a lot, but I have done it and exceeded that more than once, so it's possible. And in fact, in some of those cases, I was actually doing things like going to grad school and holding down a part-time job that did not know about work-life balance at the same time. So yeah, 100%, it's possible to do. I was also in my 20s when I did that. That was my first nano win, actually. I was in my 20s, so I had a lot more energy and I could sleep less, and I did that quite frequently. But even as an adult, when I was doing a 9-to-5, pre-COVID, the highest that I've ever gotten, I think, was in the 70,000 range. Now, keep in mind, I know people who were able to do 100,000 words in a month, and I don't know how they managed to do that. For me, that is a full year of writing these days. So pre-COVID, I had a lot more energy as well. I was taking care of... I wasn't taking better care of myself. I just had less of a life, and I was also younger and slightly less sick. So it was just easier. But, so the point is, I know from experience that in order to get the barest minimum, you need to either A, write every single day 1,667 words. I've not been able to write 1,667 words for a couple of years now. So, well, actually, no, that's a lie. I did actually do a couple thousand words in a day on this draft, so it wasn't too bad. But I don't know how likely it is I'll be able to do that again in November, is what I'm saying. November, I don't really have too much going on. It's just that I'm also preparing for some travel, because in early December I have to actually travel for personal reasons. It's a weekend trip, but it's going to be far, and it's going to be the first time since the pandemic started that I've taken an airplane, so it's going to be quite fun. I actually don't mind flying all that much, but you know, it's the hassle of getting there, and once I'm there, it's not actually going to be a trip for pleasure, it's actually a trip for work, so it's like, I'm excited for it because it'll be the first time that I get to do it, but it'll be quite a lot, and that's going to be the first week of December, so it's sort of like I'm going to be doing this challenge, and then boom, immediately after, I'm going to be doing this challenge and preparing for that trip. So that's going to be the end of my autumn in a nutshell. But the reason why I'm not going to be doing 1,667 words tomorrow, or even the day after, is because I'm going into the city both days. Tomorrow is an Ingress event. If you don't follow Ingress at all, Ingress is like, I don't even know why I'm explaining this, because the only person in the chat room right now is somebody that I know who knows Ingress. But Ingress, for anybody else who might be listening on Blue Sky or whatnot, it is the older sibling of Pokemon Go. So it was made by the same company, Niantic Inc. And Niantic actually used a lot of the assets or a lot of the tools and processes that they used to make Ingress, and they took it and made Pokemon Go with it. So like the map of all your Pokestops and Pokemon gyms, those are actually an entire game map that was created in Ingress by Ingressors, or by Ingress players essentially. So basically Ingress is a sci-fi capture the flag game in real life, or in other words, it's just the gym component of Pokemon Go. Anyway, there's going to be an entire event. It is a mission day, and missions are basically like there's strings of portals that you have to visit and interact with. So you can do a bunch of different things. Normally for mission days, all you have to do is visit each portal, and then you get a little badge, and you have to do this about 6 to 12 times in order to get a full banner. I do believe it's 12. It's been a while since I've done a mission day. So this is going to be the first mission day in New York for a while, and the reason why it's in New York is because it is a celebration of Bauhaus. So it is also our first international cross-national mission day, as in there is a mission day that's happening in New York, and then across the globe, let me actually see where this is. I should know, and I don't, but anyway. Right, Stuttgart, Germany, I do believe, is the other one. Right, it's just a celebration of Bauhaus, the Bauhaus art movement. So it is a day-long event, essentially. The start of it is going to be at noon at the Guggenheim, so if you're interested in Ingress, if this sounds like something that you might want to play, newbies are welcome. You know, meetup is at the Guggenheim there. And from there, you know, we just go and walk around, hang out with each other. But Ingress events tend to be like, oh, we start here, but we go until god-awful at night, or whenever people finally decide to peel off. It's a lot of fun. My friend and I, the one that I was supposed to be meeting tonight, we are actually going to be starting out a little bit earlier to hang out and then go to the mission day. So I'm going to be out of the apartment the entire day. Benjamin will be with me, as he always is. He enjoys going on these long adventures, even though he's hiding in my bag most of the night, or most of the day actually. So unfortunately there will be no pictures unless I can sneak him in, and I'll be like, this is our little honorary enlightened player. He is a bee. His name is Benjamin. But he is my mascot, so therefore that's why you can take a picture of him. Like, the enlightened players do have a llama among us. We do have the enlightened llama. So, you know, maybe they will. Maybe it would be a cool day for Benjamin. I will have to see if I can find any Ingress stuff for Benjamin to wear. But yeah, so that's going to be all of tomorrow. Then the day after, I do have business in the city to attend to, and then there might be hangouts happening afterwards, because it's the city. So in other words, for the first 2 days, I'm definitely not getting those 1,667 words, which means that option B will have to be my inevitable downfall / fate, which is to sit down and just have a day wherein you write just balls to the wall, all the words. And I can do that. The downside with my setup right now is that my current computer isn't very portable. I haven't really tried. My laptop is a hefty beast. That's the downside. I don't really use the keyboard itself. I use an external, but you know, maybe I should give it a shot. And the reason why this is relevant is because one thing that I used to do all the time is I would take a laptop somewhere else and I would set up camp and I would sit there for hours on end and just write. Just do nothing but write. I would be disconnected from Wi-Fi. I would have my document of my word processing document of choice up, and it would just be me and that for hours along with the coffee. And I got so much writing done that way. I have been able to write longhand as well. That's what I do nowadays. I would take a journal and go and sit down in a cafe and just sit for like a couple hours and just write. But I tend to get more distracted. I've been noticing that I've been getting more distracted the more that I do that. So either I need to find new places to go to, or I need to give myself more breaks. So we'll see. It's also a bitch and a half to transcribe after those kinds of writing sessions, and in order to make up, I would have to actually do a 5,000 word day minimum. So it would basically be from the time that I wake up to the time that I go to sleep. I would be at Scribner if I tried to do that. If I tried to do that at home, so I would have to figure something out. See, it's like the older you get, I don't know if it's just me, because like there are definitely older writers out there, and a lot of people I know will produce like books in a handful of months and then be able to turn something out on itch.io and whatnot. But the older that I get, at least, the less energy that I've been finding that I'm having. So it's getting harder and harder to sit down and focus for long periods of time. So that's why I've often set myself like minimum requirements of 500 words a day, and even then I'd be like, well fuck, I didn't meet it today because I just got distracted, or I just don't have the energy, or I don't have the motivation to sit down and write, and I need to be able to find that little center again. But it might also just be that I've been working on this project for way too long, because it has just been the nameless song for the past couple of years, and maybe it's just that I need to spend some time to work on something else. But I have to finish this one draft first, because if I don't finish this draft, then I'm never going to go back to it, as folks would recall from the last draft that I tried to take to publication. At some point I will get back to Always the Bridesmaid on that point, but that's what happened to it. So I'm not like a multi-draft juggler as a lot of writers are. I've yet to develop that talent. Even when I was writing fanfiction, I'd try to write multiple projects at once, but I would get like a couple chapters into one, and then I would abandon it completely for another chapter, or for another project. Or I'd be working on a project, and I'd try to jump to another book or another idea, and write a couple chapters of that other idea, but then just switch back to the first project. So like I need to be able to finish something from start to finish, from beginning to the end. But it is getting more and more difficult with the Nameless Song. I think it's just because I've been getting burned out with it, which is scary to think about because I'm not even halfway through this draft. But that's also part of why I'm doing this with NaNoWriMo. Like, I don't want to get completely burned out with this draft, but I want to get as close to done as possible. And talking out loud, I realized that this past month of October, I actually had to do a chapter count in order to figure out what to talk about for the newsletter that's supposed to be popping up tomorrow. And I wrote 5 chapters in 1 month, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for me it's, it's nearly an entire arc. So, and on top of that, I was only writing maybe a few hundred words a day. So if I'm writing over 1,000 words as many days as I possibly can this month, I will hopefully be able to drill through at least the end of Act 2 into Act 3, hopefully all the way to Act 4. And we'll see where we are after that. Out of the sheerest curiosity, part of this is like, oh god. Let me actually count these bits, because the notes are just like, I did those earlier this week to figure out the structure of the story and whatnot, so you did actually see a few spoilers, yay. Okay, so we're over 50,000 words getting to chapter, and as I said, that'll be trimmed down as I rearrange in the next draft. So, yeah. So right now, we look like we're standing at 51,000, but it's more like 48,000. So it's not super bad, considering the fact that this is technically a third of the way through the book. It's or at least a quarter, just over a quarter. Like, we're halfway through Act 2. Like, it's not super bad. I keep on saying to myself. But, yeah, my hope is we'll be able to get to the midpoint of Act 4 by the time that I'm done with Nano. Because that's 50,000 words, and I only want this book to be at most 125,000. So if all goes well, that means that we're going to be standing at the midpoint of Act 4, which means that Act 2 is where Mick decides to become the conductor. Act 3, the end of Act 2, beginning of Act 3 is when he gets his first failure. Act 3 is when he learns what being a conductor actually means, and that's also the act where the Zizun come in and they become a regular part of the story. They've been hinted at up until this point. I'm going to rework parts of Act 1 so we get to see a little bit more of Mick interacting with the Zizun. It's going to be cute. But Act 3 is when they come in proper, and Mick learns how to be a conductor thanks to negotiating between them and the dragons. Act 4 is when he goes from... At the end of Act 4, I can't share exactly, or at the end of Act 3, I can't share exactly what happens, but it's going to be technically his second failure that he wouldn't have been able to prevent. So it's more like a betrayal. I'm saying this in the save the cat terms. So that's his betrayal. And Act 4 is when he starts to face the music and actually go through the act of being the conductor. That's when the conflict finally the outside conflict of the gods finally comes down and bears down on Sanctuary, or at least on Mick and all the characters around him. And he takes everything that he's learned so far and he puts it together in order to defend basically what he's considering his people at that point. The height of Act 4 is, of course, going to be nearing the climax. Act 5 is going to be the final battle. I can't get too much into that, in part because there are some things I'm still kind of figuring out. But once Act 5 rolls around, it's just like final battle and then tying up loose ends. I hate when denouements take forever. As you can probably tell from Blue Sky, I had just actually finished up one of the comp tales called Dragonfall, and that took like 6 chapters to finally wrap up the entire point of the story. I hate it whenever books do that. To me, like, I was listening to an audiobook version of it, so the final battle happened, and then there was another half an hour of listening to go, and I was like, God damn it, like, why am I still here? I do not care about any of these characters. The final battle did not change that. So, like, I don't want to be like that. I will figure out how to wrap things up in a timely manner. So, Act 5 won't... It's, going... Probably, hopefully, fingers crossed, going to be the shortest act of all. But, I just kind of hope that what I have in mind will actually stand on its own as its own story. I know I keep on bouncing between all sorts of problems, but it's a whole lot of jitteriness and nervousness about what I have to do this month, because I'm realizing now at Nano Eve, with an hour and a half to go before midnight, that is 50,000 words. That is just under half of the book that I need to write in a single month. And I need to be able to figure out what I'm doing for those 50,000 words. And I mean, I know what I'm doing. I have an outline, both the one that I threw out and the one that I've kind of picked into and put together via notes and what I want to have happen. So I know what happens in these chapters, or in these arcs. I don't know how many chapters it's going to take, is the downside. But hopefully it's going to be that we get to the final arc, and December will be when I finish this draft. December or January. And that's a weird thing to think about, because I started this draft in September, and I took a little over a year with the last draft. The last draft was overblown by a lot, and there was a lot going on as well. There was the move and a lot of depression and a lot of shenanigans from dipshit McGee. And you know how it went. So now it's sort of like, here I am, and I'm in Act 2, 10 or 11 chapters into the new draft in 2 months. And this next month, I'm going to have most of the story done. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm a little bit excited. But let me go back to the chat real quick, because I do want to address a few things here. Companion Wolf says, I found something and going to start trying to write an initial story for it. It's a journaling type of solo TTRPG. Will YouTube let me post a link here, or will I get my little pizza hand snapped? I had people try to send me links through YouTube and they would not go through. So my recommendation is, if you have me on Discord still, send me a Discord, or you can send me a Blue Sky DM. I will warn you ahead of time that I will likely not be responding either way tonight, because I've gone through and talked a lot about how the rest of the night is going to be spent doing newsletter / relaxing and letting my brain heal. But yeah, just send it to me via DM. Companion Wolf says, your nano abilities are very impressive, and hey, it's easier to cut words than add them. With the nano abilities, it is definitely... I hesitate about that because the times that I won nano, I would only be writing 3 chapters for a very overblown fanfic. So this was back during my fanfic days. I have written original fic for NaNoWriMo, and I have one with original fic, but in those cases they were just fucking god awful. Actually in every single instance where I've written original fic. So that does not bode well for... But then again, most of the original fics that I have written for NaNoWriMo were first drafts. This is going to be the 6th draft, which I have meticulously planned out many times beforehand. So fingers crossed I don't fall into my old traps, because the other thing that I would do during NaNoWriMo is I would add on to previously written fanfics that were already super overblown. Like, I'm talking hundreds of thousands of words. And I would be adding another 50,000, but it would only be 3 chapters. So hopefully we don't do either of those things with this. But that's basically how I won Nano. That, and partway through, I think 1 year, I just straight up wrote fucking whatever in the middle of NaNoWriMo. We won't even get into it. I wrote porn in the middle of Nano, and I know that's surprising because I cannot stand porn nowadays, but I was a different person in my 20s. Let's just say that I don't even know what happened. I think after, it's kind of ironic, but after I started going on what's technically HRT for a medical condition. So yeah, I take hormones for a medical condition. There's your second TMI of the evening. But after I went on hormones, my libido just disappeared, and I can no longer really do porn. So, but the year that I really won Nano, I was writing porn in the middle of it. But there's that. Hopefully I don't do that in the middle of Nano. Well, actually, I can't do that in the middle of Nano because I physically cannot do that in the middle of Nano anymore. But, yeah, as for it's easier to cut words than add them, I'm not sure how much you were aware of TNS Draft 5, but that is not true. They say this, but it's not true for everybody. I actually found it a lot. So basically, TNS Draft 5 was originally 149,000 words. By the time I was able to cut it down to a point where I felt comfortable sending it to betas, it was 131,000, and I just could not cut it down any further. So that was a lot of work to rewrite entire chunks in order to condense them, because that's essentially what you're doing. You are reading through and trying to find value in the words that you've written, trying to find ways that you can write them more concisely, and then essentially rewriting your story to be shorter. So it's, I know that I tell other people it is easier to cut than it is to add, but it's actually, for me personally, it was more difficult to cut. Because by contrast, I'll give you another example. The original Always the Bridesmaid draft was 41,000 words. And I knew that I could not have this be a novel. It was just 41,000 words. You had to get to 50,000 in order to be a queryable fantasy novel. And I know it's arbitrary, but your window for fantasy novels, if you want to query, from what I understand, is, well, actually, anything less than 50,000 is a novella, so it's like something a little bit different. Anything over, you're fine, but your absolute cutoff is 125,000, so that's why I was really angsting about TNS Draft 5. But, with Always the Bridesmaid, it was 41,000 words, and I was able to draw it out to just over 50,000 because I was not just rewriting, I was also adding new arcs and expanding the story, and it was actually a little bit more fun. So, but then again, I am also not like, I know I'm not like other girls, but I'm not super I don't work the same way as a lot of pros do, I've noticed, and that actually might not be a great thing. For example, I see people use like spreadsheets to outline their novel, or they use very brief outlines and whatnot. I physically cannot do that. I see people who are writing like very brief drafts and then they expand them, and I've tried that, but I got so fucking bored nearly 2/3 of the way through the previous trash draft that I did of TNS. That was actually draft 5. The draft I was talking about, that was 148,000 words, was actually draft 4 now that I think about it. I'm sorry. But, yeah, it's, it was just, so basically I just operate differently from a lot of other folks, and that does shoot me in the foot. A lot. But it's also true when it comes to expanding versus contracting, or expanding versus cutting. For me, it's really difficult to find places to, because I'm like, well, I need this because it talks about mixed state of mind, or I need this because it's a plot point, and it's like, basically I had to nuke the entire draft 4 in order to find places to cut. And also rebuild the plot structure from the ground up, because what was happening was I would have all these plot ideas and they weren't fully connected, and the beta readers were like, yeah, these plot points aren't fully connected, this just doesn't feel like it's moving forward. And I'd be internally going, well, I need to do this because this needs to happen. And I'm like, well, I need to stop thinking like that. I guess the only thing that I can do is nuke the entire thing and build it from the ground up, and hopefully I'll be able to stop myself from coming up with plot points that I feel like I need to have. And so far it's been easier to stop myself from being like, I'm going to come up with all these plot points, and my entire outline is just going to be these beads of unconnected plot ideas and unconnected concepts that are going to be strung together loosely with walking chapters. It's been easier to avoid that, but I am finding that I I am getting to be overblown with draft already, and I'll need to talk myself into condensing at some point, and I'm not looking forward to that at all. So we'll see. Companion Wolf says, okay, noted, and I think that was about DMing. But yeah, YouTube is weird. I mean, you can try it in here, but I do believe that Cryptic once tried to send me a link and it just would not go through. So, you know, either or. Companion Wolf says, I only ever won Nano once. I assume that's one as in WON and not that you tried Nano once. It's a challenge. It's not for everyone, for certain. So, but you know, even if you won it once, is one thing that you were able to do. You were able to experience. Companion Wolf did correct and say one as in WON. So yeah, I am very happy that you at least got to see that final screen where they congratulate you. Companion Wolf also says, I am nodding, that all tracks, and how did I use the wrong word there, lol. It happens. Companion Wolf says sleepy, that's fair. And on that note, it is 10:42, so I think this is a good time to prepare for that last sprint. I'll go over schedules afterwards, but I'm going to rest for like a few minutes. If you haven't gotten water, go get water. And we will start up our last sprint at 10:45. Alright, 10:45. So, 20 minutes are on the clock. Last sprint of the night, my dudes. Get ready, get set, and here we go. Alright, that is our last sprint. How did we do? 419. Most of this was actually spent trying to track down. Here's the thing, my dudes. If you're going to say something that about your work on social media, make sure that you write it down somewhere so you don't forget what you said. Not that I am probably going to change the name of this place at a later time because I do not like the name that I already gave it for Septopolis, but nonetheless, just, you know, don't do what I just did, which is put something on Blue Sky, be like, yeah, it's this is a fact, and then 2 months later I'm like, fuck, I need to find out what that was I said. I remember saying it, I don't remember the specifics, so that sucked. That was like the full 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I don't know. But yeah, I feel like we're getting somewhere. Even this is like a good third of the chapter, and we'll be able to power through once we get a chance to sit down and write. I don't know when that will be. Maybe Sunday morning. We'll see. But in any case, that is how I did. Companion Wolf, feel free to chime in with how you did. In the meantime, I am going to talk about schedules. So, I will say that I might change up what day we do our sprints. What day we do our streams, anyway. It's not solid, but the thing is, my free company has been doing stuff on Tuesdays, and I kind of want to join them. I know that's a terrible thing, especially going into NaNoWriMo. But for now, if I decide to change it, I will let you know. For now, however, we're going to continue with the Tuesday streams. So that means the next time we will do a stream, it will be on Tuesday the 4th. Yeah, Tuesday the 4th. Companion Wolf says, making progress on the initial writing for the solo game. Not doing full prose right now, just bullet points. Totally cool. I do wish you the best of luck with continuing onwards, and that is still progress, so excellent. So yes, the next time we will meet will be Tuesday the 4th. I've already mentioned how busy I'm going to be this weekend, so you can, so there will definitely not be a stream anytime between now and Tuesday. Even on Monday, I'm probably going to be busy. Because it's NaNoWriMo, there is a decent likelihood of additional streams that week. Just keep an eye on Blue Sky. I might test out other days on which to hold streams. I know that Thursday isn't going to be super reliable because that is now my noon D&D night. But we'll see. In the meantime, Friday might be a likelihood. I'm not doing anything this Thursday, but there might be a stream anyway. Just keep an eye on Blue Sky. I will make an announcement. That's where I'll do it first, and you will likely get a ping if you're subscribed to me. If you're not, I'll show up on your timeline eventually, I'm sure, with more Benjamin picks. If there is no stream this weekend, or next weekend, I will probably be around the apartment. So you might be able to see a stream. Actually, let me just check something real quick and see. Because the main goal is I want to interact with you as much as possible I want to sit down and do these streams because, like it or not, I do make a lot of progress. I mean, you saw me make progress today. It wasn't that much, but it was at least a nice chunk of, let's see. Started here with only 21, but then I wrote like nearly 900, maybe 850 words just today. And I've been able to do more than 1,000 words for a sprint in the past. So I do make decent progress. And it is a nice time to sit and kind of like socialize, but it does take a lot out of me to do these streams. So on the one hand, I do want to do them just to continue making progress and to have a sort of community going, because there sure as fuck aren't any going on like there used to be in the early heyday of Nano. But we'll see. So in other words, definitely Tuesday the 4th we're going to meet. Afterwards, I'll know for certain if there's going to be any additional streams. I don't even know why I'm playing this out right now because you know how I am. I will look at the calendar on stream night and be like, cool, so I'm probably not doing anything these days, so you can expect that. But in any case, the point is, this NaNoWriMo, you might see an uptick in streaming, or you might see just me going balls to the wall on Blue Sky. We'll see. But if you are doing Nano, I do want to wish you the best of luck. It is just it's just over 45 minutes until go time. Also 11:11, make a wish, nice. Is just over 45 minutes on the East Coast, aka where I am, because hello New York. But it is. I know that Nano has gotten such a bad rap, but it's Nano.org. If you want to do the challenge, I say do the challenge. Sure, there's not really that much of a community because we've all kind of dispersed, but there are places online that have been trying their best to rekindle that spark. There's Plottober, there is First Draft Fall, there is also Nano 2.0. I might actually be dropping in on that more or less. Kind of, sort of. It's all on Blue Sky too. So like, search for those hashtags and go find your people. There are communities and there are ways that you can challenge yourself. So like, rekindle that Nano spirit. Will it be the same as writing offline in a bookstore for God knows how long? No, but you can also organize that. If you can't organize that, some people might be ignoring the entire Nano.org thing. I don't know. Just like, keep your eyes peeled. Sure, or it was fucked and is dead now, thank the Lord. But the spirit still remains, and I highly encourage you to go out and find it. If you are just the kind of person who just wants to write 50,000 words and that's your personal goal, that is also valid. And I do wish you the best of luck as well, like just on a separate note. Like either way, have fun with Nano. I hope it's the most productive Nano that you've ever had. I hope that the one that I'm going to be doing is going to be one of the most productive that I've ever had, wherein I actually make progress and don't just write 50,000 words of hot garbage. But, you know, we'll see. It's going to be an adventure either way. But in any case, to wrap things up, it is past 11 right now, and I have cold tea and a shower to take, and relaxation. Or TMI, I'm sorry. But either way, I feel like this stream is just about ready to close. So, Tuesday the 4th, guaranteed next stream. Other than that, stay tuned to Blue Sky as always. Hit that bell if you don't feel like going on Blue Sky, and you will get notified when streams happen, like literally as I hit that stream button. But Blue Sky, join up for advance notice. But in any case, that is it for me tonight. I am going to stop rambling, and I'm going to take care of myself, and then hopefully get the newsletter scheduled in time. God, just pray for me. But that having been said, I hope you have an excellent rest of your Halloween. Thank you for joining me on this spooky Halloween night. I know it hasn't been. You got to hear an author winding themselves up and facing fears and stuff like that. That's your Halloween night, but you know, it's also pretty cool to chill with you guys. Even if you're kind of lurking and you just were doing the sprints. I do appreciate you. I love you. And until we see each other again, take care of yourselves and remember to hydrate and sleep well. Good night, everybody.